Let me begin with a question. Do you have a favorite memory from your kitchen table? Perhaps one from raising your own family or maybe gathering with friends? One woman I know once shared her favorite memory. She cherishes the indentions left behind when she taught her daughter to write. Her daughter pressed so hard on the paper, forming letters, that it left a permanent mark on her kitchen table, and she vowed to keep that kitchen table forever. For me, I remember the funny stories from my young adulthood. One of my favorite memories was the time my mom thought she was spraying furniture polish on the kitchen table, but sprayed oven cleaner instead. Our kitchen table held the secrets of decades of family history, including the laughter and sometimes tears of everyone who ever joined us for a meal. The burnt pork chops my grandmother made every Thursday night because she believed you used to have to burn the pork to make sure it was cooked properly. The many birthdays celebrated with themed cakes, and even sitting down to write my parents' obituaries. These memories and so many more were etched into that table's history. Reflecting back, the last time I sat at that table was 12 years ago, after returning home from my mother's funeral. It was then I closed my eyes for a moment, burning the vision of our family table into my mind's eye so that I would never forget it. It was at that moment when I opened my eyes and it occurred to me, if tables could talk, they would tell the stories of our lives. And I wondered, might they tell even a bigger story? Perhaps one of positivity, making a meaningful impact on the significant issues our families and communities face across the world? I decided to make it my mission to find out. You see, globally, there are over 8 billion people in the world, and the issues and statistics are astounding. A third of the world's population suffers from loneliness. The global results indicate young adults ages 19 to 29 are the most lonely. There are 110 conflicts and wars in the world right now, some lasting over 50 years. This year alone, there have already been 575,000 suicides. And the United States is divided down the middle, and both sides are seemingly unwilling to listen to another perspective. It might be helpful to understand my background before I go on. I spent half my career in the corporate world working for Fortune 100 companies, and I changed careers midpoint. Since then, I've been an entrepreneurial hospitality veteran, chef, and sommelier. And no doubt, I love food and beautiful table settings, but what I believe is genius is the gathering. Each gathering is only for a moment in time, and those moments are unassuming, yet potentially transformative. I began researching over a decade ago, and I now have a collection of stories that I continually add to. In my work, I've seen the impact gathering around tables has on culture, courage, and connection. And I found the patterns that led me to use the acronym TABLE, which stands for T, teaching moments that inspire action. A, advocacy and community building. B, breaking boundaries. L, love, courage, and compassion. And E, educating ourselves and others. Let me break these down. I'll do that by sharing one story from my research as an example of each letter, and I'll show you how one ordinary person can have extraordinary impact, one table at a time. T, teaching moments that inspire action. A young boy named Dennis immigrated from Haiti to America, and he felt isolated. He stood out, not because of a single significant language barrier and a brand new school. The result was social isolation. A wise teacher saw his struggle and encouraged him to embrace his adversity, making it a teaching moment that inspired an idea in Dennis. Dennis devised an inclusive program with his teacher support so that no one in his school would eat alone. He didn't want his classmates to feel as excluded and lonely as he had, especially at the cafeteria table. This program blossomed, empowering students to create communities of belonging and help eliminate social isolation in schools. Today, the reach from that one teaching moment includes over 10,000 schools and 5 million students globally. A is for advocacy and community building. Kristen went abroad to learn the French language and discovered the soul of the French culture. She fell in love with the long meals around the table. Years later, and now a mom, Kristen craved the connection she'd experienced in France and wanted that for her community. Her modest idea was to paint a simple wooden picnic table turquoise, the universal color of hospitality. She placed the table in the front yard close to the street. She'd sit at the table, inviting people and their pets to join her. And little by little, strangers became friends, and friends became a community. You see, Kristen's table became more than just a piece of furniture. It served as a catalyst for change. Today, the impact of that small gesture extends worldwide. Turquoise tables and the front yard movement have become symbols of unity and connection. B is for breaking boundaries. JR's story began in the vibrant world of graffiti art, where he continually pushed boundaries. He decided early on that he wanted his work to extend beyond the confines of galleries and museums, so it could be accessible to everyone and not just people with means. One of JR's goals was to draw attention to the forgotten and the marginalized by using his art. He developed an innovative photographic collage technique that was large scale, and he allowed his art to spark meaningful conversation and touch the deepest parts of our humanity. One of his projects was a giant table on the border between the United States and Mexico, a site of great contention for both countries. Now, in your mind's eye, imagine a photograph of a young Mexican child's face. Zoom in on this photo until only the innocent eyes of the child are visible. This is the image that JR printed onto the vinyl tablecloth over 60 feet in length. He stretched the tablecloth across the border, strategically placing one of the photographed eyes on each side of the border wall. The table, enormous and impossible to miss, attracted hundreds of Mexicans and Americans alike, all sharing a meal. It served as a powerful reminder to the world that despite the walls and borders that divide us, we are all human beings. Walls and borders will not and cannot separate us. L is for love, courage, and compassion. Geraldine lost a brother, a helicopter pilot during the Vietnam War. To honor him, she founded an organization dedicated to planting trees where there were once bombs and landmines in the region of Vietnam most scarred by the tragedy. The amazing work of this organization has been going on for 30 years and expanded into building homes, schools, and libraries, positively affecting the lives of over 100,000 Vietnamese. Many years into their work, Geraldine shared an intentional table moment that few will ever know about, but she was able to witness. In a quiet room, there is a table for two, with only glasses of water placed on it. Two former enemies from that horrific and ruthless war met face to face. They talked and shared their stories and the deep knowing of the lasting effects of war. But the table, being a great equalizer, allowed them to share their stories and set down their differences to find forgiveness. In those quiet moments of their intentional table, the true power of love, courage, and compassion transcended any imposed order. And finally, E, educating ourselves and others. Kelly learned about the staggering reality of human trafficking, a global epidemic. Deeply moved, she came up with an unconventional idea. She invited her friends over for dinner and asked them to pay the equivalent cost of the meal. She taught her friends what she'd learned, and she used the money to donate to the cause. Her experiment was success, and Kelly has been hosting these seasonal dinners, teaching people about the fight for freedom for over a decade, and she's been able to make significant contributions to help. One dinner with her friends turned into a movement of compassion. You see, these stories tell the story of one ordinary person having extraordinary impact, one table at a time. You are invited. Let's come together at the table instead of sitting apart. It's the essence of our humanity and a source of hope that can unite us. I'll leave you with this question. If tables could talk, they would tell the stories of our lives. What stories will your table tell? Thank you.